UK.
This is BBC 5 Live. Up all night with Dotun Adebayo.
So, Misspent Youth is the theme for our virtual jukebox phone-in from 2 o'clock. 40 years ago, the Sex Pistols were the most dangerous group on the planet before NWA took that title. And talking of a misspent youth, Johnny Rotten, Paul Cook, Steve Jones and Glenn Matlock, soon to be replaced on bass guitar by Sid Vicious, were billed by the tabloid press as the most obnoxious, disgusting, filthy reprobates the world had ever seen. For teenagers like myself at the time, they were the best band since records began. Well, never mind the Rollocks. Steve Jones's memoirs of that mad time is out. And when I spoke to him yesterday, I first asked him what a life lived in poverty in London meant to him in the 60s and early 70s.
Well, it was Shepherd's Bush, Hammersmith, you know, the outside toilet, no fridge, no shower, maybe a black and white TV, keeping in the same room as my mum and stepdad, in some grotty little basement. There was a lot of that back then. I don't think you knew any different. So I knew it weren't good, but if you don't know any different, then it doesn't seem that bad at the time, you know. But it was pretty grim round Shepherd's Bush when I was a kid. You'd see a lot of rag and bone men at the time, you know, nicking lead off of roofs and stuff like that. It was all very Dickensian, if you like. You know?
Yeah, that was Steptoe the Son territory, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I was quite shocked, actually, when I read in your book that you were sexually molested at the age of 11.
Yeah, by the stepdad.
Let's not go into the detail, but how did that affect you, that experience?
Well, it obviously affected me. You know, when you're at home and something like that happens, you obviously don't feel safe being at home, and that's when I started like just going out every night and didn't want to go home. It changed everything for me. I mean, I was always kind of troubled for no reason, but that definitely took a big turn after the stepfather did that, and it totally steered me in a different direction, made me angry, and I didn't know I was angry at the time. But I was just, it just made me an unhappy camper, and, you know, maybe really just become I looked for other avenues to act out in. I hadn't discovered booze or drugs at that point, but then I started, you know, nicking a lot and stuff like that. And I don't know if that would have happened if I wouldn't have felt not safe at home after that happened.
Yeah, that nicking experience that you went through led you ultimately to boarding school, didn't it? Or Borstal, as it was known in those days.
There was various places I was in, but the one I was in for a long time was Approved School, which was out in Banstead, a place called Banstead Hall. I was there for about a year and a bit, and I actually enjoyed it, to be honest with you. It was about 20 young boys like myself who were wayward, and they were trying to help you more than punish you. And it was in the country, and it was this great old Victorian house, and I really liked it. I'd never been in the country before, really, and it was a nice shift from Benbow Road in Shepherd's Bush.
Yeah, complete juxtaposition, wasn't it? So, but you did actually succeed quite well, apart from the times when you got nicked yourself, but your life of thieving turned you into something of an invisible man.
Well, the amount of times I went thieving, which was every day, I mean, it was the first thing I thought of when I woke up was, okay, what am I going to get away with today? And that went on and on and on and on. So the amount of times I did get nicked, which was about 13 or 14 times I actually went to court, was not much comparison to the amount of times I was thieving. And it was all juvenile stuff. Nicking cars, nicking whatever weren't tied down, you know.
I suppose that ultimately led you into music in an odd kind of way.
It definitely pushed me into that direction of there's got to be a better life than this kind of concept, you know.
I love the way that you describe the different youth cults that you were going through at the time. And the trajectory actually starts from your real dad, who was a teddy boy, but then you became a skinhead, a mod, if not a mod, a glam rocker, all the various permutations.
There was a mod there for a minute. There was a hippie. there was a rocker, there was a teddy boy. Oh, I did it all. I just bounced around, just trying to fit in.
And you didn't know, of course, none of us did then, that this great youth culture that you were part of creating was looming ahead.
Yeah, didn't have no idea that that whole concept was coming round the corner. Due to John, of course, and it was a good thing for a while. It was fun for a while. But then eventually, you know, when that ended and I moved out to California, you know, I got bored with the punk thing and just started growing my hair long and doing something completely different. I think that's just my MO. I don't like staying in the same thing all the time. It seems to get boring and I get bored and want to move on.
Yeah, you went through various musical changes, as those youth cult changes suggest, you know, from Otis Redding to Jimi Hendrix or whoever it might be, to all
Roxy music.
Yeah, particularly Roxy music for a while. When did you start playing the guitar?
Very late on. You know, we had the Pistols going before John joined, and I was the singer, and this bloke Wally was playing guitar, and McLaren got involved a little bit at this point, and he suggested, and rightly so, that I should stop singing and play guitar and audition for a singer. And at that point, you know, when we got John in and I was slung onto guitar, I had to learn very quickly in order for it to happen, which was, you know, taking speed, and it was a big part of me being able to concentrate and I taught myself. You know, it was about 3 months before we did our first gig at St Martin's College of Art, round the corner from where I was living on Denmark Street. And then I guess I was meant to play guitar because I picked it up reasonably good by the time we did Nevermind the Bollocks. I mean, it was about a year, I think, since I first picked the guitar up to then. I mean, I'm not like some Yngwie Malmsteen type of guy, but I can get by, you know.
You played some iconic licks on some of those earlier songs. I was listening to something the other day, and I thought, hang on, that's pretty vacant.
Yeah.
You know, did you play all that stuff in the early Pistols days then?
Yeah, of course.
Well, no, I mean, you say of course, because I'm saying for somebody who, as you've just said, just picked up the guitar quite late, some of those licks have stayed with us for 40 years now, and people are still riffing off of it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know, I think Chris Thomas, the producer of Nevermind the Bollocks, me and him kind of hit it off when we were recording, and he spent a lot of time with me to get the guitar right, and he would listen to a lot of ideas I had, and he wouldn't just blow it off, you know. Like, a lot of punk records were just knocked out in about a few days, you know, like the first Clash album with not much sound or production on it. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I like the Clash and, you know, the first few albums, whatever, and I like the Damned first album. But I just spent a lot of time, and that was my favourite time of pretty much a lot of the Pistol time was recording that album, because I spent a lot of time doing it. So it was worth putting in the time.
Okay, let's not jump the gun. We need to go back a step or two, almost as you say in the introduction to your book. We'll leave that Johnny Rotten stuff till later. So we're there now at Let It Rock, which was the initial name of Malcolm McLaren's shop on the World's End west side of King's Road. It was a little tiny shop. I remember it well myself, as I was saying to you a few moments ago, Steve. I used to go there myself looking for the odd teddy boy gear, bootlace ties and all that. I couldn't afford any of the drape suits and all that. But you went there, obviously, to relieve him of some of his products without paying for it. How did you link up with him then, from that point, where you went in there thieving? How did you link up with Malcolm McLaren?
Well, initially, I went in there, and unlike a lot of the other shop on King's Road back in the day, I was drawn to the fact that you could hang out in there. They had a jukebox and a couch, and there was no pressure of like, what do you want? If you don't want nothing, off kind of thing. You could actually hang out in there, and I kind of just got along with Malcolm and Vivian. I guess they saw in me something that was appealing to them, and I saw something in them that was definitely appealing, another way of life that I'd known before, previously just being, you know, kind of like a hooligan going to football matches. And I was drawn to that scene that was going on with Malcolm and Vivian. So I don't know if I started nicking right from the get-go, but I definitely took a few things off their hands, that's for sure.
And you would have been about 20 at this point, and they would have been, what, 10 years older?
I believe so, yeah.
When did Johnny Rotten come in the picture, and also Paul Cook, and then, of course, Glenn Matlock?
Well, Cookie, me and him have been mates since we were 10 years old, so we were always stuck together. Matlock used to work in the shop on the Saturdays, and he was a fan of the Faces, as me and Cookie. So that's where the band started, us three, with this other bloke, Wally. And then, like I said, it was time to change it up, so we started looking for singers, and that's when John used to come in the shop too, and that's where we met him. The shop now is still owned by Viv. She has it's the World's End shop there now. If anyone's interested, that probably don't put two and two together.
All roads during the punk days led to then. I think it was called Sex, and was it called Seditionaries as well at some point as well?
Yeah,
so you remember, it went through various transformations.
I think it was actually called Too Fast to Live, Too Young to Die at one point as well. Early on, very early on.
And the irony of it was that it went from being a Teddy Boy store to being a punk store. And, of course, people remember famously all the sort of battles of Sloane Square at the other end of King's Road on a Saturday morning between Teds and punks as well.
Right.
A lot of that was hyped up there, wasn't it?
There was definitely some aggro. There was definitely some real fights between Teds and punks. Like anything else, I'm sure everything gets blown out of proportion in the media, but it definitely happened.
You mentioned that first gig at St Martin's College on Charing Cross Road.
Yeah.
What do you remember of it?
Not much, other than it was... I do remember that it was like, I knew that this was the best thing that had happened. The fact that we was actually playing in front of people. I knew it was something great, even though I had a Mandrex and I had a couple of pints. Maybe that's what made me thought it was even better than it actually was, but I just knew that this was what was meant to be happening at that stage.
So many people on the scene in those days were on drugs.
Not a lot.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people. You had, Adam the Ant, he was playing bass in the band we were opening for at St Martin's College. Billy Idol was around with the lot from Bromley and Susie. It was all great at that point, The point when it got kind of stupid, when it got kind of mainstreamy, the uniform was a leather jacket and jeans, and it's no fault of anyone. It's just that, after the Grundy thing, that's when it became kind of boring, if you like.
Yeah, I remember that very well. Bill Grundy used to present a program straight after the news. I can't remember what it was called.
The Today Show, yeah.
The Today Show, that was it. And out of nowhere, and, if you'd been on the punk scene and you knew it was such an underground thing, to suddenly see it on telly, it was completely revolutionary. I remember Susie Sue was in the audience, amongst other things. And then I remember you. And arguably, you're the person who cost Bill Grundy, who was at that point one of the veteran TV broadcasters. You cost him his job, didn't you?
Every dog has his day, mate.
You had your day on that. I mean, to hear some of the stuff you were saying, it seems quite tame now,
Yeah.
But it was a different world in those days. It was a completely different...
Well, what was weird is, like, he asked for what he got. He was just obviously just trying to take the piss out of us. But, I mean, we didn't know it was going out live. It just happened, and I don't know if that was a mistake or if it was meant to be, if it was deliberate. I don't know why it went out live, because they had a 5 seconds delay even back then, so.
But he was egging you on. He was like saying, "Go on, say your worst. Go on, more, say your worst," and you did. And I imagine that you were either drunk or on drugs at the time.
I had a couple of glasses of wine, that was for sure.
Yeah.
That they had in the green room.
That was a little naive of them. What happened the day after? What do you remember about that?
I remember it being like crazy. It was like a band went through a car wash, and when they come out the other side, they were a completely different band, and everything had changed. It was the bizarre time. It was like it completely changed overnight. to this thing where everyone was looking for a thing to put on the press. You know what the press are like. They just they see an opportunity and realise something sells papers. They got on it. But it was, to me, as much fun as that was the next day, and there was press following you around, mainstream press following you around. I think that was the beginning of the end as well.
Why?
It just became a circus, and it shot us into a different stratosphere where I don't think we could handle it. We were going along steady prior to the Grundy thing, a normal rate, speed, and gaining momentum. But then after the Grundy thing, it was too much, too soon. That's the way I see it. Other members of the band might have a different view of it, but that's how I saw it.
Sometimes be careful what you ask for. That's what you wanted, wasn't it? The fame and fortune and everything. But
yeah, but it was too fast, I think.
Because after that, you could hardly play a gig anywhere, as I recall.
Yeah, a lot of people banned us up north when we did the Anarchy tour.
And I remember trying to get a copy of Anarchy in the UK from some stores. In those days, you could buy records from the likes of Woolworths and Boots and all that sort of stuff. And I remember going on the Holloway Road and going to like one record store and saying, look, I'd like a copy of Anarchy in the UK. And they're like, we don't stock that.
Yeah.
And then we go to another place and they say, yeah, we stock it, we don't play it. I went to about 3 or 4 places before I could even hear the song. Yeah, let's have a listen to what it was like. Yeah, this takes me back. Here we go. You see, again, Steve, when you hear that, I'm listening to the guitar work and thinking, whoa, that was good, mate. That was good. That it just energized us. Fair enough, Johnny's vocals, but that guitar as well. I don't know if you get the credit for it. I'm not just saying that to massage your ego, but, people sometimes overlook the fact that there was great guitars on all those Pistol songs.
Yeah, I guess so. It depresses me when I hear all that stuff now, to be honest with you.
Really? Why?
I don't know. A long time ago. I don't know.
But that's what you created, That's what you gave to. I was 17 at the time, and you gave it to us 17-year-olds. I felt like you were speaking to me, mate. And
well, at the time, yeah, but that was 40 years ago.
It's a different world for me as well, but it doesn't take away the fact that I was 17 once, and I was energized by that once. I'm still the same person. Yeah. I don't know. For me, it just I don't really like hearing it. I don't know. I'd rather listen to something mellow. What do you do when you go on stage then? And with the Pistols, as the Pistols?
The last time we did that was 2008. We did about 30 shows in Europe. Yeah. I mean, it's all right. It's just like, we only did it for the bread. I don't think there's anyone was bullshitting about that. And if we ever did it again, it would only be for the bread. You know what I mean? We never got paid originally. You got to realise this. Back in the day, we never saw any dough.
Where did all the money go?
I think Malcolm put a lot of it into that movie, The Great Rock and Roll Swindle. Without our consent, we never made any dough. We got like £50 a week. That was the deal back then. And we didn't question it because we didn't know any better. I wasn't, business-minded. I still ain't business-minded. But I don't think we'd do any shows again. I mean, if we was getting Rolling Stones money at the end of a tour, I think you'd put up with anyone, But at the end of the day, when we do a tour, we don't really make that much money. So I don't think anyone can be arsed with it anymore. And like I said, in 2008, it was just like, oh, I don't like doing this. I'm like looking at my watch, like, when's this over? And we only played for an hour and 15 minutes. So I think it's good just to leave it as it was with them memories when you were a teenager. That was it,
I saw you live twice. I saw you at Brunel University, which was, I think, the last gig you did, if not in the UK, certainly in London. I was very lucky to get a ticket to that. It was about November 77, I'd have thought, so it was coming up towards the end. And I saw you before that in the student hall in Stockholm, where, I don't know if you remember that gig, you turned off all the lights on stage and there was almost anarchy broke out because nobody could see you lot playing.
Yeah, vaguely.
Which was your favourite gig as a Pistol?
There was, I think, Screen on the Green.
That was early. Wow. In Islington.
We played there twice, one with Glenn and one with Sid. They were both really good gigs. The 100 Club was a good gig. The Punk Festival, I enjoyed that one. I don't know. The two that came to mind that I thought were quite satisfying.
It sounds like you're trying to outrun the shadow of your Pistols past, though, Steve, to a certain extent.
I don't know. I mean, does Paul McCartney or Mick Jagger talk about when they was around in the 60s? They're probably bored with that too.
Yeah, but Paul does nowadays because, you know, he realises it's part of that history of Britain. You know, he plays a part in it, doesn't he? You can't outrun that.
I guess so, but I can only feel the way I feel, unless you want me to say something else.
No. I want you to say whatever you want to say, mate. I generally do.
Well, that's you know, what I'm saying is how I feel. You know, that was a long time ago, and don't get me wrong, it was a great time, and it was exciting. You're young, and you're changing things. But now I'm 61, and I really don't give a f what happened back then. You know, that was then, and this is now. I don't want to keep harping on about from 40 years ago.
Why have you decided to publish this biography now?
I thought it was time. You know, I started doing it about a year and a half ago. That's when I started it. I just wanted to get my side of the story out. You know, I always feel like I get shafted a bit in the Pistols, especially when Sid came along visually. And, you know, you hear Rotten side of the story, you hear everyone else's side of the story who weren't even there. So I just thought, I want to get this out, regardless if it's good or bad. I just need to get it out.
And you've called it Lonely Boy.
Yeah.
Is that how you feel now, still?
I still have elements of being a loner, for sure. You know, I've never really had a proper relationship with a bird. And when I speak to my mates, I'm glad, because they're married and they hate it.
I said you got to be careful what you wish for.
I know. I don't mind. I'm quite content. I'm quite content with my life, you know. And it's like anything else. You don't know what's going to come around the corner. And I'm in a good place right now. I like living in California. I like doing the radio. And I'm always curious about life, because it happens once, then it's over. And here I am, 61, and optimistic whatever's going to happen in the future. Hopefully, I'm not going to drop dead tomorrow, and it's all new. You know, that's the great thing about life, is it's always new, because you haven't been there before. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How about the music, though? Are you still playing? Are you playing in bands? Because you had a flirtation with various different bands over that side, didn't you?
It's okay. I don't mind getting up here and there with people I like getting up with. But I really don't care that much, to be honest with you, about playing. I like doing the radio. I like playing songs on the radio and play some new bands and stuff on the radio. I like doing that. But I'm really just what excites me is being in nature and being around good people. You know what I mean?
I totally know what you mean, actually. So, out of the many jobs you do now, acting, radio, DJ, record producer, what's one that you like the most? Is there acting? That's strange when I saw that.
I'm an author now.
Oh yeah, of course. I forgot that as well. I should remember that, absolutely. Which is the one that you've enjoyed the most, you reckon?
I like acting, actually. I find that more of a challenge. I did a couple of, I don't know if you get it out there, I did a couple of seasons of this show called Californication. And I get, you know, bit parts here and there. As long as the dialogue ain't too much, I'm good. I like doing it.
You can put on a Yankee, can you?
Don't ask me to. A little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot more I wanted to ask him as well. Steve Jones of the Sex Pistols, you've probably heard that, yeah, he represented a lot of my misspent youth, put it that way. And misspent youth is the theme of tonight's Virtual Jukebox phone-in. 0500 909 693. I'd love you to join us and tell us which one tune represents a misspent youth.
I was always kind of troubled for no reason, but that definitely took a big turn after the stepfather did that, and it totally steered me in a different direction, made me angry, and I didn't know I was angry at the time, but I was just it just made me an unhappy camper, and you know, made me really just become a, you know, I looked for other avenues to act out. Yeah.
I was quite shocked, actually, when I read in your book that you were sexually molested at the age of 11.
Yeah, by the stepdad.
Let's not go into the detail, but how did that affect you, that experience?
Well, it obviously affected me. You know, when you're at home and something like that happens, you obviously don't feel safe being at home, and that's when I started like just going out every night and didn't want to go home. It changed everything for me. I mean, I was...
Teenagers like myself at the time, they were the best band since records began. Well, never mind the Rollocks. Steve Jones's memoirs of that mad time is out, and when I spoke to him yesterday, I first asked him what a life lived in poverty in London meant to him in the 60s and early 70s.
Well, it was Shepherd's Bush, Hammersmith, you know, the outside toilet, no fridge, no shower, maybe a black and white TV, keeping in the same room as my mum and stepdad in some...
The UK. This is BBC 5 Live. Up all night with Dotun Adebayo.
So, Misspent Youth is the theme for our virtual jukebox phone-in from 2 o'clock. 40 years ago, the Sex Pistols were the most dangerous group on the planet before NWA took that title. And talking of a misspent youth, Johnny Rotten, Paul Cook, Steve Jones and Glenn Matlock, soon to be replaced on bass guitar by Sid Vicious, were billed by the tabloid press as the most obnoxious, disgusting, filthy reprobates the world had ever seen.
Grotty little basement. There was a lot of that back then. I don't think you knew any different. So I knew it weren't good, but if you don't know any different, then it doesn't seem that bad at the time, you know. But it was pretty grim round Shepherd's Bush when I was a kid. You'd see a lot of rag and bone men at the time, you know, nicking lead off of roofs and stuff like that. It was all very Dickensian, if you like, you know.
Yeah, that was Steptoe the Son territory, really, wasn't it?